I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Slow Horses editor Sam Williams. First of all, Sam, you recently won the BAFTA for TV editing for season 3 premiere of Slow Horses. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Tell us about the night, because when you got up on stage, I watched it, you seemed genuinely shocked to have won the award.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think most people are really. It's quite shocking. I think you're sort of standing up thinking, I hope that was my name, or it's going to be quite embarrassing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine you do that, and you go into this blur. Yeah, it was really touching. You thanked a lot of people. You thanked your family, and it's just so nice that Slow Horses is getting so much recognition these days as being like one of the best shows on TV. Um, I'm really curious just to know what you most value about working with the creative team behind the show, and of course, Gary Oldman as the number one on the call sheet.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a great job, really. I mean, I said, even before all these, way before all these accolades, what a great job it was. Obviously, as you just said, you've got Gary Oldman and Kristen Scott Thomas, Jack Loudon, etc. I mean, everyone's great. And, obviously there's, the person who plays Louisa as well, Rosalind Eleazar, she's great. So as an editor, you've just got this great set of actors, and that does make your life a lot more fun. And not to mention, obviously Saul Metzstein, the director, who was great. And the script's great. Will Smith, I hope they get a look in this Sunday at the BAFTAs, both of them, because once you're working with a good script and some good actors, and then ladle on top of that again, you've got Danny Cohen, the director of photography, and that camera team that I actually worked with when I was in Istanbul. It's all those little things, they all just start coming together, and then hopefully you've got a good show. And then you wouldn't be getting any of these accolades or awards unless every little thing starts to come together. So it was a joy to work on like that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've loved Slow Horses since the beginning, but I just noticed season 3 it's just really ramped up in terms of how riveting that particular storyline was based on that particular novel. I assume it opens in Istanbul, which is a bit of a departure for the show. It doesn't stay in Istanbul, but of course there's quite a bit of footage that I assume that you would have been editing down into a fantastic sequence that opens the show. Did this mean you had to change up the show's usual pacing when editing those particular scenes?
Yeah, I mean, we did spend most of the time. I mean, I think that sequence was probably twice as long as that at one point. Um, and obviously you've got a lot of pressure from the I guess from the fans, but from the production company. They go, look, this is great, guys, we like this, but we want to see Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
And you've got to weight it against that. But also then you don't want to lose the the texture and the living in that Istanbul moment. And also setting up for the whole series, it's crucial that that Chopet's character, who was called Sean. So Sean and Alison at the beginning, again, great actor just to play what, 10 minutes, Catherine Waterson, is it? Just for 10 minutes. It's so important that those actors, you totally get that they love each other, but you've also got to get that they're in this spy espionage element. But ultimately, you've got to get that they love each other in a very short space of time. Because I mean, I think it's only about 2-3 minutes, and then he's out the door, and that obviously the repercussions of that reverberate across the whole series.
Absolutely. If we're not invested at that particular point, then it's hard for us to understand why he then does various things, including abduct Standish, for God's sake, which is just horror. It's so harrowing. So yeah, I totally get that, and it's a short sequence, but yeah, it's so memorable. I felt like I was watching a really awesome James Bond travelogue. Like this is not Slow Horses' usual setup and aesthetic, and then of course it gets back into the dingy, grimy, worn surrounds of Slough House. Um, yeah, so let's talk about various things that you deploy as an editor, and just so that we can understand the craft a little better for people who aren't totally aware. Are there any guiding on this particular show? Are there any guiding principles that you follow when you're deciding on the rhythm of any given scene? Like, do you favor close-ups, wide shots, dolly shots? Because Danny Cohen and the cinematographers give you lots to work with, and then it's all up to you in the editing room to piece it together. And to me, that just sounds like an extremely difficult job to get right.
I wouldn't. I mean, I'm sure you'd be pretty good at it. You seem to have watched a lot of movies and TV. I mean, I mean, I think that is it. You know what you like to watch, and there's a certain rhythm to those things that you like. I think you're just trying to get that. You're going, if I was watching this story, where would I want to be at this particular moment? That is a general guiding principle I go by. But in then saying that, you're watching the rushes, you should be able to start to figure out what the director's intention is.
Mm.
That should sort of start coming across to you when you're watching it. So you're going to try and do that, certainly to start off with. Um, and then there'll be certain performance elements that catch your eye. And then really it's just a question of balancing those all together and going, right, we'll start here, we'll do that. You obviously want a wide shot to get your environment. I mean, I definitely do like to go very wide to very close. That's certainly something I like to do, but it's not unique. Um, but yeah, I mean, you look at the footage and let the footage guide you. I don't really like to go in with a preconception of how I'm going to do it. And obviously the story is leading you to that. For example, the scene where Gary Oldman washes himself, or you know, uh, Jackson washes himself. That is such a great scene to cut because there's loads of footage, and they run it all through in the wide anyway. Um, but I always remember the little bit of soap, him trying to get the little bit of soap up off the thing, and that these little shots catch your eye, so
Yeah.
you just go for things really.
Yeah, I love the little shots, the little touches. It kind of gives you context, and sometimes it even gives you an insight into the character's state of mind, which kind of sounds crazy, but it really does actually happen. The one thing I really, really love about Slow Horses when I start to watch an episode, I'm looking forward to the razor sharp one-liners. Like the dialogue is often really funny, laugh out loud funny, and this is a
Yeah.
drama. Especially when the characters are sarcastic or self-deprecating. How as an editor do you typically like to amplify or support those kinds of shifts in the show's tone? Because it happens throughout each episode.
Um, oh, difficult question.
Like, does it even matter? Do you just continually you're just editing to support the story, but when it's getting funnier, does it change at all?
I guess it depends in the rhythm of what's going on around you at the time. If you want to favor the comedy over, I mean, particularly, I mean, I wouldn't want to favor one actor and giving them praise, but Jack Loudon with his character, River, he's very good at that in the middle of something that's quite crazy, just going, really? Are we going to do that? Like he's got a good look about that, and so actually is Rosalind, plays Louise. She's very good at that sort of. What is this? What we're doing? Um, but I mean, it's difficult. The one scene that made the one line that made me laugh out loud was Spider. Spider, is that right? I haven't done
Yeah,
the show for.
Spider. I know it's
I
been a
haven't been
while
on it
for you
for a
now.
year. Um, you know, where they go into the HQ and I think one of the lines is uh go back to your day job shoving fruit up your arse on OnlyFans or something like that. Um that just makes me laugh out loud, that. But I think in some ways with a joke, it's the skill is to not get in the way of the joke,
Yeah.
if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Um in action terms, if you want the joke to play out, obviously you've got to give it a little bit of space and make sure that the audience are not going, well, the action seems to have slowed down a little bit here. You know, you don't want them noticing that. But
That's true.
um,
Yeah.
in
You
terms
know,
of technique, I don't.
well, I've got a really good example, and you've kind of touched on it. It's so funny that you talk about Jack Loudon because I reckon he is so brilliant at portraying, like, it's hard to put into words, but like this amusing wariness or like humiliation, and where he'll do a slight like roll of the eyes, or like, oh, here we go again. And you linger on reaction shots a little longer when Jackson's having a crack at his team. And that makes it funny. So I'm laughing at the writing, what he's saying, and then I'm laughing at what the team is thinking about what he's saying. And I just noticed sometimes you linger a little bit longer on those shots for the routine humiliation that we're looking forward to witnessing. And so
Mm.
I'm curious if that's the kind of thing that you would say would be slightly more intentional, because you want that joke to land for a little bit longer so it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean those uncomfortable. So I mean the key to it, I think, is just is when you're in the edit, you let it play, and then you watch it. I mean, you've always got to watch it in context. You know, you've got to watch it again and again. Um, you can't just watch the little bit, you know, you've got to watch and go, right, okay, do we need more in there or less? I mean, certainly Gary Oldman can hold on to the screen, you know, forever, you know. Um, and again, I think, you know, if you think of the scene where that's one that jumps to mind with playing the time a little bit, is when Scott Thomas goes to the underground bunker for the first time.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the actor's name in there, but he's very good. Who plays the filing guy?
Oh yes, I can't remember the name either now. But yes, I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
but
that's
she's
great.
very good at just doing this very dry, hold the frame, go. You're really not listening to me.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
helps. That helps those kinds of moments land when you are just lingering a bit longer. And but then on the other hand, and I've spoken about this at length with Danny Cohen, the DP, but when you're on a spy series where MI5 agents are chasing or being chased, whether down a crowded street or in a maze of alleyways or emerging out of the tube, once you get all the coverage from the show's DP, what do you then do to work out the best angles and pacing to give those scenes the excitement that they need to really keep us on the edge of our seat? Is it a lot of quick cuts, generally speaking?
Oh, no, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, if the directors, if you're working with a director who's wanting that to happen, and the footage is sort of telling you that could work. It's not like I haven't cut things like that and that has worked, you know? It's not a bad example. I mean, I don't think, I mean, well, let's take the Istanbul sequence in at one, which I don't think is particularly cut particularly fast. It's just it's
Yeah.
making sure that the you never let off the leash in terms of tension. And we clearly want you to know where everyone is at the whole time.
Mhm.
Even to the point of going, you know where this guy is and you know where she is, but they don't know where each other are now. That kind of element. And then if you take in, say, at five, where it's the gunfight and it's just really intense, and there's like five people and a load of a SWAT team. I mean, that warrants to start cutting around and just keep the tension going again and again and again. Um, so there's sort of two different sequences. You know, they're both action sequences, but they sort of both require a different approach, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess with edit, I understand. I'm not understand's the wrong word, but I'm really familiar with what composers do, and I've learned a lot about DPs. And in my years of doing this job and understanding what an editor does, I've I think I've worked out, you know, it's all about, a lot of it is about pacing and about finding the emotion. And in a scene where there's a lot of expository dialogue, you want to really try to understand what each character is trying to get across to the audience. But I've always found it so baffling with editing, and that's just, I'm a layperson. I've never studied it, and I just wonder: is there any, when you, if you were giving advice to a young editor who's coming up in the industry, what would you say would be a really good piece of advice for an editor when they're trying to understand or trying to hone their craft to make sure that, you know, they're editing a show as best they can? Like what would you say to them?
Ooh. I definitely say make sure it sounds odd, but make sure you're telling the story, not trying to make it look cool.
Yeah,
First and foremost, tell the story, and then work on that, because the audience want the story, and then you can work around. There's some cool shots in there, then work them in. But first and foremost, tell this. It sounds very simple, but when you start editing, you can get very much into joining one shot to the next, and that you get into the flow of how cool it looks, and you get into that. I guess I'm just talking from experience, and then you learn in a while that actually the one edit that you really like, because the continuity works and it's got all this going on, it's totally messing up the story because you're not in the right place to be telling the story. The audience are not seeing the thing that they should be seeing at that time.
yeah, that makes total sense. And yet still, I would, if I was in an editing room, I'd be terrified. Mate, Sam, thank you so much for your time today and your insight. Congrats again on winning the BAFTA. I hope we see you on the Emmys red carpet. I love this show. I love your work on it. Thank you again for your insight.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Rob.